you're a paramedic. You became a pharmacist. Now, as a
Mhm.
paramedic, we're given this little magical toolbox with a whole bunch of meds in there, and they say, "Here you go. Go play. Go. Try not to do any harm."
Yep.
What is the one medication you want all paramedics to just give a little bit more thought about when it comes to making the decision to give it to a patient?
Gotta get a grip or get a hold of myself.
Welcome to Last Known Vitals. My name is John Smith, and today I'm sitting down with Dr. Justin Crespo. Justin has been a paramedic for 7 years, in healthcare for over 17 years, worked everything from 911, IFT, and a flight paramedic. Justin, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I really do appreciate it.
So, you've been in healthcare for 17 years. Talk to me a little bit about how you got into healthcare to begin with.
So it actually started in high school when I was in a program called HOSA. It was most likely like a nursing program almost for high school students. And I got voted the president of that, and I realized I liked healthcare. And then I took AP Bio and AP Chem in high school, and I realized I loved the sciences and healthcare combined. So after high school, I went to an EMT school, and then I was ocean rescue for a couple of years, and that got me thinking, well, if I could do this, I could probably go to higher level of care to a paramedic school. And long story short, wound up going to medic school and graduated in 2013. And I was a paramedic, so I was like, well, what can I do as a paramedic now that I'm here? And I started with IFT. I feel like most people start off with IFT. And for those who don't know, IFT is interfacility transport. Just you're going to hear that more often. So was IFT for a little bit. Then I got moved to 911. Then I got, like every other medic, I have a hospital job in between. And then I was just wanting more. So I applied for a couple flight medic positions, and I got one in South Florida. It was a fixed wing, so it was really cool because I got to fly internationally. And then from then on, after that, I taught EMS and ventilator courses before I went to pharmacy school. So,
Wow, you're pretty well rounded for sure. Talk to me a little bit more about that ocean rescue. What was that all about?
so it was just basically just like a lifeguard, but we had a little bit more. It depends on where you are. Some people call it lifeguards, some people call it ocean rescue, but we had ability for jet skis and longboards and some other equipment. But it was cool. I liked it. It was on Hollandale Beach, and I loved going to work. It was about 45-minute drive to work, but I loved it. I get to sit there and be at the beach, get some tan, and look cool while I'm doing it. So that's about
Oh
it.
yeah, that's awesome. Did you need any additional certifications for that?
Yeah, it was like a ocean rescue, like an open water rescue certification. And that wasn't that hard. It was just being physically fit at the time and being able to swim 25 yards through the waves, or they call it the surf, and making sure that we brought people back without getting stuck in the undertow or in the rip currents. And if we did get stuck in those, like how do we handle those? So it's basically just open water swimming for the most part.
Did you ever find yourself in one of those situations?
Off the clock, not during shift. It was a weird scenario. I was just at a beach with a friend of mine, and then some lady just started yelling. She's like, "Oh my god, my husband got stuck in the current, and he's with my son, and they can't swim." So yeah, it was such a weird thing. So then I was like, "Well, no one else is here," so I felt obliged to go and help out, and took my shoes off and ran straight into the water. I had my jeans on and everything, and I wound up swimming to them. They were about 30 yards out. They were stuck in the current, and I grabbed both of them and I swam parallel to the shore. And then once I got out of the current, then I swam back to the shore. But I was gassed. by the time I got out.
Oh,
So
I can't even imagine what that was like, man. I mean, first
yeah,
of all, jumping into the water with pants on, that was your first mistake.
yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't want to go in my underwear.
Yeah, that's true too, you know?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's crazy. But yeah, you're right with the IFT thing. So as a paramedic, they always start you off in the IFT world, which to me sometimes is a little bit, crazier if you ask, because like you get some pretty sick people right out the gate. And I remember my first, real paramedic call was a vented call, and I felt like I had no idea what the hell I was doing. They were just like,
yeah.
here's the keys, good luck.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I got good exposure because we had IFTs, or we had facilities that were really far apart, and then with every facility, you have a nursing home 911 call. So they wouldn't call 911; they would call IFT as 911. So I got some pretty good exposure to 911 calls through nursing homes, and then I also got my transports. And then eventually, when I got comfortable, dealing with patients and moving up into more serious calls, like ventilator calls or balloon pump calls. Critical care is what what they refer to. So that took about 2.5 years, 2 3 years after I was a paramedic to get comfortable with critical care.
Did you take the actual critical care course?
Yeah, I did. I took a course through Cleveland Clinic at the time, um, and that was probably 2 years after I got my medic. And I still felt like I didn't belong because there was people there in my class that were like a medic for 5 years before they went to crit care. So, but it was good. I had a really good foundation, and the class was 2 months long. So I got that, and then after that, I took my crit care and I passed, and that's it.
So down there where you were working, and you said South Florida, is that what you said?
Yeah, South Florida.
Was it a double medic, a basic medic? What kind of system do they run down there?
It depended on what kind of truck you had. If you were an IFT, it would just be EMT medic. If you were on a crit care, it'd be double medic. It just really depended. Or sometimes if you got shafted, it would be uh, crit care medic and then a basic EMT without any crit care experience. So it's like I don't mind teaching, but when you're teaching while you're going, it's not the best combination. It's not the best environment for learning.
Yeah, for sure, especially when you're trying
Yeah,
to take care of a critical patient, you know?
right. No, yeah,
So
exactly.
did they not do like a for the critical care, did they not have like a medic nurse situation or
No, no, it was just medic EMT.
oh, no kidding. So
Yeah,
up here, all the critical care to my understanding, and I'm not critical care, so let me kind of speak with a little bit of ignorance. It's generally a medic and a nurse duo, and that's kind of how they operate in the local areas that I am.
yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, I know at the children's hospital that I worked for, they use a medic, nurse, an RT, and an EMT to drive the ambulance. It's a huge, like, I think it's a Freightliner chassis, so it's huge.
So between the three, the 911, the IFT, and then the fixed wing, which one did you enjoy the most?
Probably fixed wing. Um, I got to travel to different countries, but it was cool because I was actually a high school anatomy teacher while I was doing that. So I taught high school, and then I would go to school at night. And on the weekends, I was a flight paramedic, and I would fly from. I'd be on call from Friday 7 p.m. to Sunday 7 a.m. And I would travel every weekend. It'd be like to Aruba or Mexico, Canada, or Bonaire, Nicaragua, like Jamaica. The possibilities were endless. There were so many opportunities, places that I went to.
Was that for like kind of like the go and rescue the patient from those areas? Was it one of those situations?
It was more like kinda. It was more of like a patients were traveling or they were on a cruise and STEMIs, strokes, sepsis, and they had third level. What do you call those? Third world country like hospitals. So there was a couple in Nicaragua, like one of the ones I think it was Saint Elizabeth. It's if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember the name, but in Nicaragua we would go to this one hospital that was across the street from this old abandoned church. and it was scary because there was no doors. Everything was like concrete and then hallway, and then you just have rooms that are open to like the elements of wind, sunlight, rain, everything. So,
That's wild. It makes you just appreciate a little bit more what we have here. I mean, like 5 level 1 trauma centers within a
hmm
mile of itself here in Boston. That's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, it was wild. I'll never forget like going down these roads and there was just dirt and rocks everywhere and there was no pavement. People were really nice. I love them, but they were just like, it was really poor area. And I was in an ambulance, basically. I was in a small van with no AC. So we just had to crack the windows open and they had tape on the windows to cover for privacy. So like it was, it was weird, but I loved it.
That's wild. What
Yeah.
what protocols did you operate under in the foreign countries?
Our protocols in the States. So we would come, we'd bring our bags, and they would have our narcotics, our sedatives, intubation kits, whatever, and a mini ventilator just to like, get us into to and from the plane and the hospital. So it's like portable ICU.
Was there any ever issues with like the medications and stuff like that into the other countries?
Not really, because we treated it as we started from scratch. So unless they had a patent line, they're getting a new line because we don't know if it was contaminated. We don't know anything about the patient. So we always started from scratch.
I had a friend that did the global rescue stuff, and we
hmm
had talked, and he had always mentioned that you have to follow certain rules when you go into these other countries, and like that could be medications, what you're allowed to do, things like that. So I feel like that would always
Mm,
just add a little extra stress to it.
yeah, I mean, I never really had any issues with bringing other medications or other narcotics to other countries because I think it was just more understood that we're there to provide a service for a patient and then leaving. Um, I don't think it was an issue. Plus, most of the time, the patients that I took were American, so it was a hit or miss, honestly. But I've never had issues.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean,
Yeah,
why not add just a little extra, stress
yeah,
to the already stressful job?
right.
So you've been a paramedic for quite a while here,
Mhm.
and then again, I followed you on TikTok. I found you on there, and I was like, oh wow, this guy's a paramedic, and then he became a pharmacist, and I was like,
Yeah,
damn, like that's a totally different kind of world.
right.
That's a big left turn.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit how that came about. Like, what drove you to pharmacy? Did you always want to get into pharmacy? Like, how did you land there?
Well, so when I was in medic school, I worked as a pharmacy tech over at CVS down in South Florida, and I thought that being a pharmacy tech would be a good transition into being a paramedic, just because I dealt with a lot of older patients as an EMT, and I knew that they were on a lot of medications. So I was like, well, why not try to get a job as a pharmacy tech? And they train me, so whenever I go to medic school, I'll be a step ahead. And that's exactly what I did. Um, but during that time I was a pharmacy tech, I would talk to my pharmacist boss, Monica, and I would always ask her questions. I was always curious about how drugs worked. And she would never tell me the answer. She would always say, get the monograph on the bottle and look it up. And I'm thankful that she did that because that instilled a good habit just to look things up, um, which I still do, but sometimes I'll ask questions out loud thinking. And I would just say that's what drove me to wanting to learn more other than just being a paramedic because I saw that and I was like, I could learn so much. And I'm so limited as a paramedic because I wanted to learn like how every drug worked, all the different side effects, why they gave these medications or all the indications or how the drugs were made. And I felt like I couldn't do that as a medic, but I needed money at the time, so I went to medic school. So
And you thought becoming a paramedic was going to get you paid?
touche, yeah, touche. At the time, I did.
Yeah, right. I think we all have that same feeling, and then then we quickly realize, like, hey, maybe
Yeah.
not as much as we thought.
No, no, that's so for real. I was making hardly any money as a medic, let alone hardly any money as a pharmacy tech. But I felt like it was a good segue to jump in there. And then ever since I was a medic, I think about the fourth year, after the fourth year or so, I started thinking, I was like, well, I really should probably start with this like pharmacy school stuff because I knew at the time where I was starting to get stagnant. And I think every medic knows that, where you just are in a service and you have reached your max potential and that's it. But you're still curious about everything. You've learned a lot about crit care and you've learned a lot about other things that you can't really apply to your service. So I was like, I need to get the ball rolling. So then I looked at starting prereqs for pharmacy school while I was a medic. And that was a lot because I worked full time as a medic and then I went to school full time, undergrad, did about 4 years, and then went into pharmacy school. And then I was like, I have so much longer to left. Like, I feel like I'm there, like it was kind of weird feeling because I know that when I was a paramedic, I would say my life would be just better if I was in pharmacy school. Like, it would be better because I don't have to worry about being broke all the time or like mentally uh, fit for this job or whatever. But I get to pharmacy school and it was like twice as bad because I was twice as broke and I had uh, like just the amount of meant just a lot of stress in pharmacy school. But at the end of the day, I'm glad I did what I did, even though it costed me some sort of stress because I'm I feel like a much better provider just because of that background that I had. So
Oh, absolutely. Like where you have that whole pre-hospital and the
mhm,
education for that, and plus you're an anatomy and physiology teacher. So like all of these
yeah.
things start to kind of mesh together. So I imagine
Mhm.
at least that made pharmacy school just a little bit easier than maybe some other would find it.
It didn't make it harder, but it didn't help all that much, to be honest with you. Maybe in one class in my cardiology class, it helped a hair because we had to go over basic EKGs, and I was like, I'm not studying this. I already know it. So that was
Right.
about it.
Right. I got that. Check.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's funny because I just finished nursing school myself, right? And I've been a
Hmm.
paramedic for about 13 years, and I felt the same way when it came to certain subjects that I was just very comfortable with. I found it difficult to stay disciplined and really crack the books open and reread a lot of the things that I already knew. And call that what you
100%.
want, laziness, whatever. But I found it to be pretty difficult. But I
Hmm.
think the medic to nurse is a lot, similar than a medic to a pharmacist. So how did you keep yourself disciplined to really hit those books hard? Because I mean, that's a big jump.
I think the biggest thing that I told myself, and I had to do a lot of self reflection because I was like, I want to be able to look back and tell my kids I was a paramedic and now daddy's a pharmacist. I just it's one of those things where like I really wanted it that bad. Um, I know that sometimes pharmacy school is difficult, but it was more difficult to catch up and like uh, catch up from your work that you didn't do previously or you didn't read than just to stay ahead the whole time. So having that mentality of where like I can't fall behind is a huge help because there were many, many, many days where I did not want to do a single thing, let alone read a chapter or two or study for 12 plus hours a day or review a lecture before taking a test. Like there was so many days where I didn't do that. But what kept me motivated was having to know that it's going to be more work if I fall behind.
That's a really good way to look at that, man. Like that's solid advice, actually. I love that.
That's the secret, bro. That's literally the secret. Like if you want to be successful, grind it out, but it's going to be more time and more money, more energy expenditure, more stress if you fall behind and you wait.
Yeah,
So,
no, that's a really good point. Did you find that going to pharmacy school, like not fresh out of high school and all that, like with a little bit of life experience under your belt, taking that on at a little bit older age, if you will, did you find that
mhm,
that was like an easier task?
yes and no. I found it to be more mentally easy because I was a medic already. I already had life experience beneath my belt. I was older. I started pharmacy school at 32. So I had a couple of people in my class, I'd say about 5 or 6 that were in their 30s when I started as well. But I knowing what I know now, I wish I would have done it earlier, but I'm glad I did it later because my maturity helped me get to where I am today.
Yeah, and
So
I feel the exact same way. I talk about it frequently that I don't think I was mature enough to get through like nursing school at an earlier age. You know,
right,
I went to medic school when I was right around 24, and even that
same.
was a challenge. Yeah,
Yeah, same.
that was a challenge. But again, I just finished nursing school at 38, so getting through it now was definitely easier mentally, and again because of the
Hmm.
maturity level. Now, obviously, life was a little bit more hectic at this
Right.
age, but again, I feel like just that time management you've experienced a little bit, and I think you're a little bit better at it than you are when you're
Hmm.
younger. You
Yeah.
know.
There definitely I would say when you're motivation in your 30s um is more clear than motivation in your 20s because when you're in your 20s, you just want to get things done. For me, I found that motivation in your 30s is that you want to do things right. So there's a big shift in attitude change that I've noticed from the younger classmates and to the older classmates, and that's not to say that they don't do things right. They focus on wanting to get it done, and I want to focus on doing things right. So there's a little bit of a difference, but at the end of the day, it's gonna have the same outcome. It's just the journey is different for your mind.
It's almost like you seek that instant gratification when you're a little bit younger and you realize that that's
Yeah.
just not always the right way to go about it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm definitely guilty of that because I was like probably around 24, 23. I was like 23 when I went to EMT in medic school. Um, I really wanted that instant gratification and I wanted to be done and I wanted to just study for the next test and be done with it. But when I was in pharmacy school, um, I knew that I wanted to learn the material and understand it so that way I don't have to review it all the time. And I wanted to be able to be answering questions without having to look it up. Like it was one of those things where I knew I needed to know the material um, inside and out. And with the younger generation, like my best friend Donnie, he was 20, barely 21, 22 when he first started pharmacy school, and there was a stark difference. He would always want to party and play FIFA and study afterwards. For me, I was like, you know, I don't know how you do this. I don't know how you do this every day. But I will say, having young friends really, really rubbed off on me because I learned not only could I get things done quickly, but I learned how to do it with the right attitude and still play FIFA and have fun in pharmacy school. So like it was like a win-win situation for everybody,
You can almost prioritize just with a little bit more clarity with a few years behind you.
right? Yeah.
So you had to go to undergrad school, obviously, and then how long was pharmacy school itself?
Um, I went to undergrad for 4 years. Pharmacy school is 4 years, depending on the school. Some schools are 3 years, accelerated. I don't have patience for accelerated, so I went to a traditional school. I went to University of Florida, Go Gators, for both undergrad and pharmacy school. So total 8 years.
What did you think was the hardest part about pharmacy school?
Hardest part about pharmacy school, honestly, was just going to school every day knowing that you're getting your ass kicked. Like that's no, that's literally it. Um, you get your ass kicked from the exams. You get your ass kicked from watching 10 plus hours of lecture a week, plus studying, 20 plus hours a week. Um, and then just reviewing the material because we had other projects we have to do. And then I was working while I was in pharmacy school. So just knowing that you're going to get your ass kicked every single day for 4 years was probably the most difficult part of pharmacy school. I mean, the, don't get me wrong, the content was really difficult, but it was more difficult knowing that I'm going to get my ass kicked every day instead of knowing the material.
Yeah, I feel like there was a few subjects that I was like, all right, I can kind of coast through this one, and then others like that's going to be a little bit
Hmm.
more challenging. But for you, it's just every single day was just a
Yeah,
complete grind.
it was just a no. That's not that. I'm not. There's no way to like explain it. I med school, pharmacy school. Um, they're about the same when it comes to how difficult things are. It's just difficult areas. Like for me, I had a really hard time with um, like statistics in the beginning, and also we had a few classes on like hormones, endocrine. Those are really really difficult for me because it's not something that I learned as a medic. We've heard of mixed edema coma and um, the other endocrine emergencies, but like that's about it. So we were going through all the birth controls, the hormone cycles for the birth controls, the different types of contraception and their side effects, how long they last, the laws about them, how they make up, um, you know, certain, I guess, how they make up, like the drug wise, like formulary. So that was probably like the most challenging class for me was the wellness classes.
It's like the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
Dude, I can't tell you. I've done this so many times. Like I've said to myself, the more I learn, the more I don't know anything. I feel so stupid half the time, like because I there's just so much information that I know that I'm getting exposed to, but the second I know I'm getting exposed to it, it's like another door opens up with a whole nother universe of questions that I have to answer. So I think that's part of the mental game I was telling you about, like with the grind is because you want to learn something and you think you have everything, but then all of a sudden you get hit with four other things that are related to that one subject that you need to understand. And then once you get those four things, another four things pop up, and I'm like, dude, when is it going to stop? Like, what? I don't know anything.
It's like the endless rabbit hole.
No, it really is. It really is.
So you just finished pharmacy school, correct? Like
In May.
recently, anyways?
Yeah, May.
Oh, cool. That's actually when I finished nursing school. What would you tell yourself going back if you had the opportunity to be like, "Hey, Justin, listen up here, okay? I'm going to give you
hmm
some advice." What would you tell your day one pharmacy school comparatively to as you just finished?
That's a great question. I think if I was to tell myself from day one, I would say don't stress about the grades. That's one thing that I was really um, adamant about was getting good grades. But at the end of the day, you're going to get good grades if you apply yourself. Like, I had the wrong mentality where I was learning to get good grades in the beginning. And then I realized that I can't learn for good grades. I have to learn for myself. Once I learn for myself, the grades will follow. So that's one thing that like I really wish someone told me early on. And then knowing what I know now, if I could pass that information on to somebody else, just know that it's not only related to pharmacy school, it's related to any healthcare school, nursing, RT, medical school, PA, whatever. Learn for yourself, grades will follow. Don't learn for the grades because then you're always chasing the grades. You're not chasing what you should be knowing.
I really like the way you just put that, and that is again solid advice. So if you're
Yeah.
listening, like write that down.
Yeah.
What would you tell somebody that's interested in pharmacy? Like how what kind of advice would you give them?
I think if I was to tell someone who was interested in pharmacy, I'd say do it because there's so many different avenues of pharmacy that have not been explored or are going to continue to open up. A big one that's being invested or more becoming more popular is industry pharmacy, basically where you work with big pharma companies. And then within those positions, there's literally like 12 different avenues that you can go down. You can go down marketing, you can go down clinical research and development, you can go down policy, you can go down research, you can go down literally any pathway. And each of those pathways have like four or five different jobs you can do. So there's so many different avenues other than just retail and hospital. I know people that are opening up clinics and partners with doctors to be becoming like an ambulatory care pharmacist, where they are monitoring and managing chronic diseases, hypertension, hypercholesterolemia, diabetes, HIV, stuff like that. And that's getting really, really popular, especially in the VA. So if I gave advice, just say don't focus on retail or hospital, that there's so many different other positions that are available that can make you so much more money and have you a better quality of life and a good schedule. So
Yeah, and I was just gonna ask you, like, what other opportunities as a pharmacist do you have? But you just pretty much answered it. So there you
Yeah,
go.
yeah. There's
Yeah,
a
because
whole
like
lot.
from the outside looking in, I'm like, the guy down at the drugstore who fills my meds, and then
Yeah.
working in the hospital, I know we have some pharmacists there.
Mhm.
And you were fortunate enough to get a hospital job. Is that not common fresh out of school?
Um, it yes and no. So it's a lot less common now. Where if you do get a job at a hospital, it's going to be like a smaller community hospital, where you get paid a little bit less. So it's in more rural areas, and they'll train you um, in all the areas you need to. Versus someone who does a residency, they can get a job at any huge medical center or academic center at any time. So for me, I got really lucky and I got a small hospital job, and I've grown to love small hospitals. There's something about smaller hospitals where it's great. Like everybody knows each other, everybody respects each other. There's obviously drama with everyone else, like every other job, but I really have grown, to really like small hospitals. And I think smaller critical access hospitals are going to be the most important uh, way for people to get access to healthcare, especially in rural areas, because they're building just here in Jacksonville. They've built one, two, three, four, five, six hospitals within two counties. And that's just smaller hospitals. There's four main hospitals, two level one trauma centers here in Jacksonville. So that just goes to show you that the city of Jacksonville and Duval County and St. John County, Clay County, within that trifecta of a 50-mile radius, there's at least 12 different hospitals, ranging from 130 beds to 1,000 beds, and that's the secret is smaller hospitals.
And you spoke of the residency. What does that actually consist of for a pharmacist?
It depends on what you want to do. So there's a general PGY1 or postgrad year one, and that just teaches you how to be a pharmacist in a hospital. That's usually a year long. And then you rotate through different sites to kind of get exposure to a little bit of everything. And it's estimated to be 1 year of residency is approximately 3 years of experience because you're working 60, 80 hours a week. You're doing presentations, you're doing research, you're staffing the pharmacy downstairs, and you're also on the floors doing rounds with the physicians. So at that any point, you're working for a whole year. And then there's a PGY2. That's where you get the more specific areas: cardiology, infectious diseases, critical care, emergency medicine, uh, geriatric, stuff like that. And that is another year of a specialized area, but you do more, again, research projects. Um, you float more in those specialized areas. You become more of a team member on the floor. So it's different. Um, that's kind of like the general breakdown for residencies for pharmacy.
Does that offer more opportunity by going through the residency?
It does. It does. It offers a whole lot more opportunity. The problem is that because I did not want to do residency during my fourth year, and mind you, I had my son in the beginning of third year pharmacy school.
Oof.
Um, that was rough.
Yikes. Yeah.
that, that was rough. So by the time I got to my fourth year and I was doing my rotations, I knew that I did not want to do residency because I didn't want to make $45,000 a year to work 80 hours a week. But then I couldn't afford my son's daycare. I couldn't afford my student loans. I couldn't afford my other bills. And granted, I know it's a year or two, but that year or two makes a big difference when you're making 120 to 140,000 a year right off the bat. So the thing with those residencies is that you get access to more specialized positions. And usually those specialized positions will tend to pay a little bit more. So
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Will you have an opportunity to pursue something like that as you gain
yeah,
more experience?
yeah, yeah. It's not required to do residency in pharmacy, but it definitely helps a lot. So for me, remember I told you 1 year of PGY1 experience is about 3 years worth of work.
Hmm.
If I did 3 years worth of work, then I would have the same training as a pharmacist that did a PGY1, but I wouldn't have the research behind my name. I wouldn't have the projects behind my name. So that's a whole different story of what I want to do as far as my specialized areas. But yes, to answer your question, I would have access to those specialized areas just with time.
Okay. So you work in the hospital right now. Talk to me a
Mhm.
little bit about your job as a pharmacist in a hospital. Help me understand what you do.
All right, so the first thing is I tell the nurses to go check patient-specific meds because they're in there.
I get told that all the time. And I'm terrible about it.
No, I get that all the time too. It's okay. So, my job is to basically ensure that patients are getting the proper medications, proper dosing, proper indication for those medications, adjust the dosing for renal impairment or hepatic impairment, um, recommend certain medications, antibiotics, antibiotic stewardship, stuff like that. So that's basically what I do in a nutshell. But my day-to-day operations is a little different because it depends on what my shift is. So I just finished training, and I could either work a day shift, an evening shift, or what we call a 2-3 or a floor pharmacist, which covers the ICU. So it varies. But if I'm on day or evenings, I will be mostly in the central pharmacy downstairs, and I verify all the orders. I make sure that whatever's coming in is timed appropriately, is dosed appropriately, because a lot of the times they'll have two different providers, like going from ER to hospital or hospitalist. The ER will order antibiotics, give them a round, and then hospitalists will go around and order antibiotics for this patient. But they don't realize it's overlap on time. So I have to make sure that the timing's right, the allergies, um, just a little bit of everything. If you think of any drug that gets given in a hospital, we verify it all.
And see, with that being said, it's interesting because the hospital that I work for, we just started having the pharmacy actually verify all the stuff in the emergency room, and now like we scan meds and all that. And there's times where I'll be sitting there and I'll be waiting, and like, come on, like let's go. And I need to go give this medication. Like time's money here.
Yeah.
And I feel bad because every now and again I have to call up and be like, "Hey, I know you're busy. Is there any way you can just take a peek at that and just do the verification thing?"
Hmm.
And again, I do feel terrible about having to kind of be a pain in the ass, but obviously there are times when it is appropriate.
Yeah, no, you're totally that's a really good point. I always tell the nurses that call me, if you need something approved right away, don't feel bad for calling me. There is 1,000 other orders that are coming at the exact same time, and what I personally like to do is, we have a system where it tells you what floor they are ordering from, whether it's ER or ICU or PICU or whatever. And if I see a list, let's say 20 orders, and if I see half of them are ER and the other half are like floor, I'm gonna verify the ER first. That's just how I've built that. That's always how I do things. Just not everyone does them. I always do the ER first because I know the background and I know sometimes you don't have time to wait. So I just go ahead and just verify it. Um, but there are times where, like floor pharmacists, the floor nurses or the hospitalists will put in a med order stat and we have to respond to those, whether it's a Tylenol or a promethazine suppository. Like sometimes they put it in stat, and by policy, I have to do those within 5 minutes. So sometimes they order a couple, dozen, like they'll order a couple dozen orders, and a quarter of them will be stat. But sometimes, like we don't have any information, so we have to make sure like why they're giving this drug, what's the appropriate dose that they're giving. I have to look at the patient's chart, read through the notes. So it's not just like looking at the order and go, okay, yeah, sure, press verify. Um, I'd say about half the time it's like that, especially if it's just like PRN meds, like Zofran, Tylenol, ibuprofen, whatever. Um, but if other medications come through, antibiotics, I'm really, really, really passionate about antibiotics. I will take my time to go through those. So those take precedence. But sometimes like ER comes in and they're like, "Yo, I need these right now." But I'm like, "Dude, it's a Tylenol. Chill." Like, so it just it depends.
Yeah, and we have the ability to override, certain
Yeah.
medications, especially the emergency stuff like that. But
Yeah.
one of the ones that we're not able to override is pain meds, and it's like
Hmm.
it's sometimes hard to sit there and swallow that, if you will, because you're like, this patient looks pretty uncomfortable right now, and it's
Yeah.
been 20 minutes. Like, what are we doing here? And you said you have 5 minutes, so that to me is just crazy because like policies are great, sure, right?
Hmm.
But the practicality of this is just it's not realistic. Like if you
Yeah.
have 10 plus patients and you just got a whole bunch of new orders, like how can you honestly go through and make sure and like give that patient your full attention without
That
just skipping beats? Like that's crazy to me.
yeah, and it you get really good at reading very quickly. Um, and with my system, I know exactly where I'm looking to see make sure things are correct. But if I'm getting, you know, a pressor, I'm not even going to bother looking at the chart. I know that the doctors are well aware if the patient needs a pressor or not. So
Right.
if I see vasopressin, if I see levofed or epi, I'm not even looking at the chart. I just click because I know that that's something that's time sensitive and I need it. Um, but there's different acuities for those that I didn't tell you. There's different acuities for these um, orders. So there's stat, there's now, and then there's routine. Routine, I have up to an hour to verify. Stat, I have within 5 minutes, and then now I have within 15, I believe. So obviously those take precedence because I have to do those. Those will get, I get in trouble for those. But for the routine ones, you know, sometimes they put in emergency medications under routine and not stat orders. So if it's something that I need to verify quickly, I'm reading everything like literally hyperspeed because I go look at the labs, make sure nothing's out of whack, look at vitals, make sure they're hemodynamically stable, go to clinical notes, read through the quick evals, go to plan assessments, making sure that everything's kosher. Um, and I'm doing all that within like a minute or two so I can verify the medications really quickly.
I feel like I can't even read a doctor's note that quickly, man. I don't know how the hell
Dude,
you do that.
we I've only been a pharmacist for 2 months, but I've learned very quickly that you just have to analyze data really quickly. So that's just something that I think I'm getting a lot better at it, but I still have a ton left to do, like to improve.
So here's a bit of a loaded question.
Okay.
If the doctor puts in an order and you're
Hmm.
looking at it and you're like, "Hey, I don't agree with that," and the doctor's like, "Tough shit. My name says MD, and this is what I need." Who gets the trump card on that one? Nice.
Me,
That's awesome.
me. Now, there is certain circumstances where I'm not going to argue with the doctor.
Hmm.
Um, I'll give you an example. Um, let's say a patient needs an antibiotic, and I don't really agree with the antibiotic because at the end of the day, we approve all the medications, and if we think that's not appropriate, then we're going to tell you it's not appropriate. Unless, let's say, ID orders the antibiotic, I'm not going to argue with an ID physician about an antibiotic. It's just it's in the nature. I'm not going to order with electrolyte replacement with a nephrologist. It's just something that you don't really argue with. But if you have hospitalist that's ordering this outlandish, weird antibiotic or outlandish, weird drug, like I'm going to question them and say, hey, listen, what's the purpose of this? Under our policy, this is what this states. This is what you mean to write, or and it's not out of like malice. I'm not trying to question the ability of the physician. It's more of like, hey, I don't have a lot of information, so can you tell me what your thought process is and why you gave this medication? And that way they'd be like, oh yeah. Usually, I would say actually almost every time that I've spoken with a physician, it's usually like, yeah, I have this going. This is my thought process. This is what I'm doing it. And then I'll be like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense." So, um, it really depends, but for the most part, we have say in everything.
Yeah, and I mean we're all part of a team, so it's like collectively we're working together. Like nobody's trying to really like flex on each other, and I think that's
Yeah.
a key point there. I was just curious to know like who actually has the trump card.
No, we pharmacy will always have the trump card. And because we have to dispense the medication. We have
Mhm.
the ability just to reject the medication and say, no, you're not getting it. But there's a saying, you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. So
Right.
it just, have to weigh your options.
Yeah, for sure. What has been the biggest learning curve for you so far?
I would say theory versus practical. That's like the one I'm really, really struggling with because what I learn in school in theory may be super dangerous, but in practicality or in clinical reasoning, it's not that serious. I'll give you a good example. Zofran, okay? They told us in pharmacy school, don't exceed 16 milligrams in a 24-hour period. This is dangerous. You have QT prolongation, right? But then you see chemo-induced nausea vomiting, and they're going 32 milligrams, and sometimes up to like 64, depending on the patient. And I'm like, what happened to QT prolongation? Like, does that not exist for them? So it's just one of those things where it's like getting theory and practical to be friends because sometimes I catch myself like, oh, whoa, that's not right. That's not what I learned in pharmacy school. But then the pharmacists that I work with, they're like, no, it's pretty standard here. You know, that's what we do here. And that has been an ongoing battle for the longest time. And I think it's just something that because I don't have a lot of experience, and I think it'll go away. But yeah, I would say definitely theory versus practical are battling right now.
Yeah, I can only appreciate that for sure. I mean, you learn so much in school and everything is, in this perfect utopian world where the patient
Hmm.
only has one comorbidity and that's it. Like that's, that's it. And then you start adding all these things together and it's like all of a sudden it's not as similar to what the book says, and,
Right.
and you got to really try to identify the right approach to managing these patients. And like you said, with limited experience, I can only imagine how difficult that is in making those decisions.
Yeah, it is. It really is difficult. I rely heavily on my colleagues because obviously they have a lot more experience than I do. So I appreciate their opinions, and you know I will be the first to tell them like I don't feel comfortable making this decision because I don't know enough about it. So I'm going to rely you to my colleague, and she can answer this question. Um, so yeah, that's what I would say. It's been that battle. It's just been nonstop, but I'm getting better. Every day is more relevant. I always try to keep up to date on relevant clinical literature, not so much just literature itself, because I feel like a lot of the times in pharmacy we like to be extra cautious with things. Um, but in reality, like it's not that serious.
Yeah, no, and the thing that I like about being a nurse and a paramedic at this point is I can always ask somebody that's higher than me and that has a lot more knowledge than me. And I feel like I kind of always have that safety net. Do you have somebody that you can generally call? Like if you're in a position where you're like, I don't know what the hell to do here. Is there somebody that's always available to you, given the time or day?
So that's a two-part question. The first part is that I just got off of training, so when I was training, 100%. Now that I'm off training, I do, but I don't. So when I'm by myself, um, I usually have my manager with me, and she's an experienced pharmacist, and I can just talk to her. But when in the evenings, when she's not there, and I'm the only pharmacist in the entire hospital, I have to rely on other campuses. I have to reach out to other pharmacists in other campuses to kind of guide me through this. So I do, but I don't.
Okay, so within the network, then you can always reach out to another
Hmm.
pharmacist that may be on shift at that point and kind of get some guidance or at least powwow about it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly it. So I have that ability, and I intend to fully use that capability to my extent because the last thing I want to do is make a decision on my own without any kind of full understanding, especially if it's going to affect the patient negatively.
Yeah, and I preach that too, especially to newer paramedics that feel like they have to go out there and just, you know, be on top of it and pretend to know everything. And it's like, listen, you don't know shit yet, and that's okay.
Yeah.
use your resources, use medical control, or as a nurse, like ask the doctor. Like it's okay to show that you may not have an understanding of something. And to me, like I give more respect on somebody that's the first one to be like, hey, I don't know, teach me something. And to
Yeah.
me, like that goes a long ways.
Yeah, no, it really does. When I was a medic, I really preached that to EMS students, or other medics. I was like, I'm a big fan of utilizing your resources. If you have your resources at your disposal, you are literally unstoppable because you have everything you need. But one, it's not just having the resources at your disposal, it's understanding when and how to use your resources is the most important part. Because a lot of the times I know people that have resources available to them, but they don't know how to access those resources. So I would say for your audience, if you really want to be successful, it's not how smart you are, it's how fast you can find that information. So that's what's going to get you the promotion. That's what's going to get you farther in life is knowing where to access the information because that is a literal lifesaver right there.
Yeah, for sure. And at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's truly about taking care of the patient and doing
Yeah,
right by them.
100%. Yeah, totally
So,
agreed.
are you still working as a medic?
No,
Do you
I don't
miss
have
it?
time. Um, I, you know that saying? It's uh 90% bullshit, 10% oh shit.
Hmm.
I don't miss that 90%. Um, I don't miss getting woken up at 2 in the morning for a stub toe. I don't miss getting woken up for a bad dream. I don't miss getting woken up for like a headache for 3 days. Like I don't miss that, you know. But that I do miss is the impact that I made, especially as a medic on these really serious calls. I miss that. But in a community hospital that I'm in, um, I have access to the ER, and I go to the ER frequently, and I cover the ER like through the orders, sometimes in central pharmacy. But I will go down there if they need help with a code, if they need help with anything. It's just down the hallway, so it's like I'm still connected to EMS, but not really. I'm like away from that. I just get paid more. That's about it.
Right. Hell yeah. One of my favorite things in the ER is having a pharmacist by our side when we have like, a critical patient or we need meds mixed up and all that. And like all of a sudden they're just like, here you go. And you're like, I didn't even, wow. All right. You like read my mind. Thank you. And
Yeah.
I feel like that really helps out more than I think people realize.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm a big advocate for having a pharmacist in every ER. Like, it, I'm always a big fan of that because not only does it help decrease med errors, it also decreases instances of wrong medications, like wrong antibiotics. I know plenty of times where there's some providers, whether they're mid levels or physicians, where they're Vanco happy. There's a scratch on you, Vanco. Here's Doxy, here's Clinda, here's ceftriaxone for no reason. Here you have a little ouch. Here's azithromycin. Like there's a lot of ways that I feel like I can help with antimicrobial stewardship. Um, but I don't like getting yelled at as far as give me my medications. I need my medications now. Like this is the right one. I'm like no, sometimes it's not. Like guidelines say this, but then I always have to think, is it really that big of a deal if it's one dose? Not going to do anything. They can always de-escalate. So that's where like the theory and the practicality go crazy.
Right. It's like here's a shit ton of antibiotics and a side dish of C. diff with it. you
Yeah,
know?
no, yeah, 100%. Like, yeah, it's wild to see all the different weird infections that come in at my hospital because uh overuse of antibiotics. Like a lot of resistance happens, not specifically in my hospital, but just like in the general area. A lot of resistance happens, a lot of C. diff because of overuse of antibiotics.
Yeah, for sure. Do you miss having the direct patient care that you did as a paramedic?
Not really, because I still see patients every day. Um, if I need to do apixaban teachings, warfarin counselings, med histories, talking to patients. I mean, like I said, I'm down the hall from the ER. So for me, if there's another pharmacist and we are caught up on the queue, I will literally take a lap in the ER and see if anyone needs anything. I'll talk to patients if need be, but I usually still talk to patients every day, so I do miss it, but I don't.
Yeah, and see the pharmacist in my ER, and again, maybe I'm just not seeing it, but I don't feel like there is a whole lot of interaction between them and the patients. They're kind of just running around doing their thing.
It depends on the pharmacist, honestly. I know some pharmacists in the ER that are really proactive and talk to the patients. Like that's something I enjoy doing. I don't know if you knew this, but there's a lot of pharmacists that are very introverted. Uh, Pharmacists naturally are very introverted because that's why they went to pharmacy school. They didn't want to have to talk to the patients. They just wanted to deal with the medications, and that's it. But for me, I enjoy talking to patients. So if I get the opportunity to staff in the ER, I know that I will be talking to patients.
You
So
kind of get to pave your own way there and be as uh, interactive as much as you want to a degree.
yeah, yeah, 100%. That's what I want to do.
And that's nice too, because I imagine there are days where you're like, "Don't talk to me. I don't want to talk to anybody." And ooh, and then
Yeah,
there are days where it's like, I kind of want to be a social butterfly today. Hey, how's it going?
yeah, 100%. No, I totally agree. I just, it depends on my mood, but overall, I really do enjoy talking to patients. Um, it's just something I've always been good at, and I feel like as a pharmacist, I can make a difference knowing that there's a lot of pharmacists that don't like talking to patients. So,
Yeah. All right, let's switch gears for a minute. So I
okay.
found you on TikTok, and
Mhm.
and again, I'm new to TikTok myself. I really enjoy making the videos that I do. I do kind of the educational stuff.
Right.
What led you to making videos on TikTok?
Dude, let me tell you. So, when I was a medic, I had one of the medics, her name was Amy. She would always bug me. She's like, "You need to get TikTok." This is back then, this is in 2020, like right before COVID started. And she's like, "You need to get TikTok because I have a feeling that you would do really well on TikTok." I'm like, "I don't even know what TikTok is, and it's dumb. I'm not doing it."
Amen.
So, so back then it was called Musically, and it was like dancing with just lyric music. And I was like, "This is the dumbest thing ever." But then she bugged me one day. I was like, "Fine, dude, I'll just do it." So I got it and I downloaded it, and I go, "I don't even know what the hell. What is FYP? Like, what is that? I don't even know what the hell that is." Long story short, I learned it, and I saw these videos come up, and they were like Vine-esque, and
Hmm.
I loved Vine,
Oh yeah.
loved Vine.
Yes, sir.
Um, I was like, "Damn, this is actually kind of funny. Like, I like this." So then I started doom scrolling and doom scrolling and doom scrolling, and then I didn't see anybody doing dad jokes, and I love dad jokes. So I started making videos on dad jokes, but it wasn't the dad jokes that would get me followers. It would be my wheezy ass laugh. I have a terrible wheezy laugh that it sounds like a legit tea kettle. So that's what got me views, and eventually I grew my page and I had a following. I still have my following at 200,000 followers, but my page has shifted from dad jokes and wheezy laugh to pharmacy content. And I wanted to integrate those two, but the thing is with making content, like or every other creator, it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work to plan it. And I'm a huge advocate of having no editing in my videos, um, no like uh, creation or nothing. I wanted to be as raw as possible, and that's how I did with my dad jokes. My dad jokes were just that. I didn't edit. I didn't do anything. I just literally posted my laugh, of me recording my laugh while I was laughing to the stupid joke, and I would tell jokes, and it would make me laugh. So that's what I posted, and it got me a lot of views. I think people appreciated the raw, like just footage. Um, and then after a while, I was like, "There's only so many dad jokes that I can laugh at."
That's fair.
So there's only so many I could laugh at. And I decided to stop TikTok, and I stopped for like 2 years. And this was around 2022, leading to 2023, like right when COVID was starting to die down, because I was getting to pharmacy school and I was just tired all the time. Like I didn't want to make any content. So I was just a doom scroller. And one day I woke up, I was like, you know what? I miss TikTok. Let me make some more content. I tried dad jokes. It flopped so hard. So I was like, I'm just gonna do pharmacy content, and that's where I'm at now.
I've realized that there's one, no rhyme or reason to, how certain videos are going to perform. Like the ones that I make, the random ones, I'm like, this is kind of a bullshit video. And then it just like, next thing you know, it's at 100,000 views. And it's like, what,
Yeah.
what? And then the one I really put some effort into, really thought about, it's like, it
Hmm.
barely even hits a couple thousand. You're like, all right,
Yeah.
what am I even doing here? And then I kind of switched my mentality of like, I'm just gonna do this for me. And at the end of the day, if I'm putting a video on there, it was for me, and maybe somebody else will benefit from it or enjoy it or whatever,
Yeah.
And I feel like and again, I'm brand new at this. I've been at it for like 3 months, and I feel like very quickly I kind of shifted my mindset into that, and now it's like I don't care to post a video every single day, or I don't care about the views anymore. I'm just like, I just want to do my own thing and have fun with it, and the day I
Yeah.
stop having fun will be the day that I stop, right? My question for you though is and I don't want to miss this opportunity. What's your best dad joke?
Oh, dude, this one went freaking mega viral on both Twitter and TikTok and Instagram. I think collectively it was sort of like 40 million views. It was a
Holy
lot.
shit.
Yeah, it was circulating for a long time, but it was basically like, what's the difference between the people in Dubai versus the people in Abu Dhabi? And I sat there for a second when I first heard it, and I go, I don't know. And it's people in Dubai. I can't even say this on fire because it's so stupid. The people in Dubai don't like the Flintstones, but the people in Abu Dhabi do. So,
I don't even get it. I'm
did you
dumb,
ever
man.
watch the Did you ever watch the Flintstones?
Yeah, I mean, here and there.
What did Fred Flintstone say?
Yeah, but never do.
That's
See, I need I need I'm slow, so I need, I need that little connection. That's
no,
good,
that
see?
that was like one of my favorite jokes. But my favorite personal all time favorite joke, um, is always like, what do you call a guy with a rubber toe?
I'll bite.
Roberto.
Jesus. And see, it's the stupid shit like that that's just I mean, look at us, we're both just cracking up. Like how can you not appreciate that, you know?
No, and that it's funny. It's just like I had so many written down and planned, but like I would say it and I would just crack up like middle of me saying it. And I think people thought that was the funniest thing in the world. And then it heard me, teak out a laugh, and then they just started following me. So that's where I got all my followers from, was I credit it to dad jokes and my wheezy laugh.
That's crazy. 40 million. What's it like seeing something that you created hit 40 million views?
Dude, it was wild. Like it it hit I think it hit like 3 million here, but then it circulated on Twitter like so many times. And then it got circulated, it got posted on Instagram. And this is before Instagram was weird and meta like.
Mhm.
Um it just went fucking crazy on there. But it's weird because like I would be talking to somebody, for example, I would talk to my wife and she'd be like, my cousin in Wisconsin and my other cousin in Washington State saw your video and they sent it to my mother-in-law saying, look how funny this guy is. And my mother would be like, that's my son-in-law. That's Justin.
It's like you
So
almost become famous in like in a weird way.
yeah, it was weird. Like, I don't know. It just something I'm used to. So
Yeah, and it's funny because like again, I'm like a minnow in the ocean right now. I'm at like I just hit the 25,000 mark, and I'm like, hell yeah, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
to me, like
you're
that's still
crushing it, dude.
yeah, it's still
You're
a huge
crushing it.
accomplishment, and I'm really happy and proud of it, and I'm eager to see where the future takes this.
Yeah,
Like I said, my whole thing is I really like giving back education that's been given to me in helping
yeah.
these new EMTs, new nurses, new medics, all that stuff. Just maybe make it a little bit easier for some of the
Hmm.
medical concepts. So, all right, Justin, I have one final question for you, man.
Okay.
You're a paramedic. You became a pharmacist. Now, as a
Hmm.
paramedic, we're given this little magical toolbox with a whole bunch of meds in there, and they say, "Here you go. Go play. Go. Try not to do any harm."
Yep.
What is the one medication you want all paramedics to just give a little bit more thought about when it comes to making the decision to give it to a patient?
That's a tough one.
Hmm.
Um,
And I'm almost asking for myself too.
I think See, I don't know how to answer that without going into a rabbit hole. So I think if I was to choose one drug to pay a little bit more attention to, I would probably say nitro. Like that would probably be my drug that people need to watch very carefully. Um, because there are many uses for nitro. But what's the one thing they told us in medic school to ask before you give nitro?
Any PDs?
Right. That's not the only drug. So you have people that have heart failure. And how many people do you know have heart failure?
I mean, vast
Literally everybody.
majority. Right.
Right. There are some people in heart failure um, that benefit really, really well from long acting nitrates. So, and a lot of people have long acting nitrates. Isosorbide is one of those long acting nitrates. What I have yet to see any medic ask for is if they have a history of CHF and if they're on isosorbide prior to giving that. Because what happens is I mean, every medic knows if you give sildenafil and or tadalafil with half life of like 2 days, uh, that with nitro you're going to tank them. But the problem is, do you forget about the other drugs that could do that too? Not just the PD5s. So long-acting nitrates, any drugs that stimulate the NO production, um, that really don't help. And the other thing to think about is not because it lowers their preload, but what's the dose for nitro normally? 0.4 milligrams?
Hmm.
That's 400 micrograms of nitro.
Right.
That is a huge bolus. So if people were to just take a step back and realize I'm giving a huge bolus of nitro, whether it's sublingually or a tablet or a spray, can we just say that forget nitro paste? It's the dumbest thing ever invented. Um, but yeah, paying more attention to the thought of like understanding why we really do need to give this and all the things that encompass nitrates um, will really, I think, have a better outcome. Because I know some people are really like, hey, let's just give nitro. I know I had this the other day. They're not wrong for doing this, but I would not have gone this way. I don't know if it was a nurse practitioner or PA or I don't know what it was, but they were giving nitro for hypertensive, uh, the new guidelines call it severe hypertension instead of hypertension crisis. For severe hypertension, which is not wrong, but that's not what I would have given first thing. And it's not just medics that I would tell that to. It's any provider or any nurse or anyone giving nitro as a bolus. Just be really, really careful because sometimes nitro is dangerous. Other times, there's things called tachyphylaxis where uh, it gets resistant to nitro really quickly. So you give more nitro and more nitro and more nitro. That's 1.2 milligrams after 3 doses. And now the patient is tachyphylaxis with nitro. But not only does that become resistant, they've also decreased afterload without decreasing preload. So now you're dumping the heart, um, where you're dumping SVR, and they're going to get even more hypotensive than they were before. So it's like it's more of a risk versus benefit. And I went on a whole rant about this just now, and I told you that I was going to go down the rabbit hole, but I think nitro would be the one.
No, and I'm glad you did, man. I'm glad you did. I remember early on as a medic, it's like, oh, aspirin nitro. And it's like, as I've matured and gotten some more experience under my belt, like I'm not one to pull that trigger nearly as quickly. Like you really have to give me a good reason to want to give you nitro, like really exhibiting some signs of ACS and not just, oh, I have some chest pain. It's like, oh, here's a spray of nitro. It's like, no, like
Yeah.
we don't need to do that. Like what are you trying to accomplish by giving that nitroglycerin?
Yeah.
And I'm glad you made the point of like that 400 mics out of whack. When you say it like that, it makes you like think a little bit more like, holy shit, like that's a lot of medication at once, and you can't take it back.
No,
Once it's given, that's it. It's on board, and you better pray that preload was good enough for you to not completely knock out, because then you're up shit's creek.
right. Yeah,
And I will say too, and working in the ER now, it's not given frequently. Like, I mean,
it's
it is
not.
it is very, very infrequently given, even to the point where when they tell me to go give a nitro, I was like, oh, we're gonna do that. Oh, okay, let me write that down. Holy shit,
Yeah,
it's not as common as it was when I first started, anyways.
yeah. No, I totally agree. And that's just, something that people, I didn't think about it when I was a medic. It's not something I thought of, but now that I'm a pharmacist and I have the understandings of the medications, nitro is a very dangerous drug. It could do a lot of damage, but you have to understand, I the reason why I started my pharmacy content on TikTok was to make sure that the medics knew a lot and everything about their medication box. Um, that's one thing I'm really, really passionate about is not only educating, but ensuring that the medic knows every single component of that drug box, inside and out. Um, and they don't always get the best training in medic school or in the real world with medical directors. Sometimes medical directors are absent. And this is where I started my video a couple months back about having pharmacists in EMS for that exact reason. So that's one thing that I was really passionate about, is just making sure that medics knew everything that they were supposed to know as far as the box, because there's a lot of medications here that can do some serious damage, and if they're not given at the right time, then bad things happen. So I'm really, really, really passionate about that, and that's kind of why I wanted pharmacists to be involved in EMS, not because to take over the medical director. That's not our job. That's not what we want to do. But we want to make sure that all staff have proper training on medications, but not just the ones that are in the box. I call this brown bag medicine, where I would go and teach the medics about other medications that patients are using chronically, so that when they go into the houses or when they go into the nursing homes and they see a slew of medications on this list, they kind of have an idea of what this patient's dealing with. So,
Yeah, I'll tell you, I wish that we did have a better working relationship with pharmacists as a paramedic, anyways, where we
mm,
could have a lot more seminars and educational, times where we get together and have someone like you kind of drill us. And it's like, hey, what about this, this, and this? What would you do in this situation? I think that would just be like an amazing experience and just benefit the whole EMS community.
yeah. Well, FAST, what's that conference? FAST,
I think it's called
it's
FAST
just
or
FAST.
something like that. Yeah.
FAST conference, they reached out to me and asked me if I was attending it, and they would give me a 10% discount on that program. But I've always wanted to speak at a conference, and I've always felt like if I can speak at not only conferences, but go to local EMS companies or EMS agencies and really teach them about medications, um, that's something I wish I could do for a long time. Like, I would do that until my 80s. It doesn't bother me one bit. I love teaching. So that's something in the near future that I'm working on. Something I'm really passionate about, not only here but in other surrounding states like Georgia and Alabama, because I want to make sure that the medics have good training. And I've been there firsthand, working in rural areas where there's not a lot of good training involved. Most of the training is, you know, um, courses online or seminars that were given pre-recorded from 3 years ago, or hospitals will sometimes put on like a seminar for, paramedics and CEs. But other than that, they're kind of fending for themselves, and they'll listen to like the MCRIT podcast or the Foam Frat podcast, which I commend them for doing. But there's a difference between listening to a podcast and getting your hands dirty and training. That's something I really, really, really want to make happen. I just don't know how to make that happen yet.
Well, I hope the future finds a pathway for you, because I think you would be just a tremendous benefit to any EMS company that would have you even come down for a day and just shoot the shit with everybody, and even an informal situation like that would just be greatly beneficial.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, man. I just the biggest thing that for me is I want to make sure that I know what I'm talking about before I go and blab to you guys for an hour or two.
That's fair, and we appreciate that for sure.
Yeah.
So, all right, Justin. Well, I want to make sure I get this correct. It's Justin Medic to PharmD on TikTok. Like, what's your actual handle so anybody can go check you out?
It's just it's Medic to PharmD Justin.
That's what it
Um,
is.
yeah, Medic to PharmD Justin. But I think I'm one of like there's only like two other people that I know that are pharmacists and medics. So I think I'm the only one on TikTok that's Medic to PharmD Justin.
So you're pretty searchable then.
Yeah, I'm pretty searchable. Yeah, it's pretty easy.
Cool, cool. All right, man. Well, hey, thank you so much for being here, coming on the show with me, and giving me some time. And I really appreciate it, man. I really do.
No, I appreciate you just having me, letting me just blab for an hour and a half, and get my word out. I really want to make a good impact on the EMS.
Hell yeah. Well, I'd say you're doing a damn good job at it. And in the future, if there's anything you ever want to come on and talk about, the open invite, man. Open invite.
Thanks, Lenny. Appreciate it.
All right, Justin. We'll talk to you later, man. Have a great night.
Take care. Bye.